Welcome, everyone, to the Unshakable Courage Show. I am so honored that you have chosen to be with us today. I started sharing my story about overcoming my experience and being born and raised in a religious cult for 35 years and then escaping. And along that journey, I started sharing the roadmap that I use to escape to help other people break free from fear. And that is the premise of the Unshakable Courage Show today. I'm so honored along that path that I have had the opportunity to meet so many other people and make an impact to help them move from fear with courage. So I often say, face the reality, release your fears, and live with power. And today, I'm so excited to introduce you to some special guests that we have on our show today that have overcome some very fearful things in their life, but along the way, they have become what I call fearless entrepreneurs. And so I'm so honored to bring them on to the show, get you introduced to them, and to help encourage you. If you're on your path to breaking free from fear, if you just need a little bit of encouragement, or you just need enough courage to take that first step, I hope and pray that today you will get a nugget of information along your journey for just what you need to help you. So without further ado, let me bring on our special guest. We have Linda Sunshine West, we have Mary Elizabeth Jackson, and we have Sherry Lippold. So thank you all for being here. I am so honored and also so excited that we have come together as fearless entrepreneurs to share our story, to lift our voice, and to impact other people. And what's also so fun and exciting along that journey, many of you and our listeners have been able to hear my dear friend Linda Sunshine West share. She is back on our show today, and we're also featuring two additional authors of fearless entrepreneurs to share their story. And if you're just tuning in, Linda and I met about 5 years ago at a networking event. We've stayed connected, watched each other grow in our journey. And so I'm excited to bring her on to share with you today about her adversity and overcoming fear to be not only a leader, but to also be helping other leaders become fearless entrepreneurs. So Linda, welcome to the show. Love for you to share.
Yeah, thanks, Kim, so much for having us here. This book, The Fearless Entrepreneurs, it's in the making for too long. I'll just put it that way. And here's the thing is, on our entrepreneurial journeys, we never know what's going to happen, what snags are going to come up in the way. Myself, even in writing the book, I did have fears that I was facing during the writing of the book and bringing the authors into the chapters, because there's different things of like a lot of people. I have a friend, for example, she this year is facing 100 hard questions because for her, it's hard to ask a question. And so because she is like the professional and she needs to know all the answers in her mind, she has to know everything. So for her to go through this, embark through this journey of asking those hard questions has been interesting. So I myself, during the making of this book, The Fearless Entrepreneurs, it's been interesting because one of the fears I had was like, if I ask them, what if they say no? What if they say no? But I realized I had to just keep asking. And you mentioned, both of us watching us growing in our journeys. And it's cool because other people will see us growing. Sometimes we don't see ourselves growing. And they remind us that we have grown, and that's how we can step into that growth. I was reminded just this morning how much I've grown in this last year. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I need to own that up. And I need to just step right on into it. So I'm excited today to talk about The Fearless Entrepreneurs, the book, but as well as these fearless entrepreneurs who are in front of you today, who just have incredible stories to share. So back to you, Kim. I feel like I'm on Clubhouse.
I I love what you mentioned about what if they said no, and coaching with clients and speaking to other people. I even posted something out on social media today. What if we thought and we shifted that perspective of what if they say yes? And I will tell you, every time that I've said yes without having it all figured out, it started me on a path. And so many times over and over and over again, it has changed the trajectory for my own personal growth and for my business. So I love what you said about that, Linda. I'm so glad that I said yes to also being a part of this fantastic and exciting book of Fearless Leaders. And so fearless entrepreneurs, excuse me. And so we are leaders too, right? So Linda, would you share with us, just give our listeners an opportunity for you to share about how you overcame your adversity of fear?
Wow, it's been interesting because I didn't really realize I had so many fears until I stopped to look at it. Because that awareness of whatever challenges we have in our lives, it's that awareness that helps us to make change. This is my firm belief. And in 2014, I hired a life coach, and in hiring her, she helped me to see all these things about myself that I didn't believe for the first 51 years of my life. And so in 2015, I decided to face a fear every single day that year, 365 fears. So talk about facing fears. I did it on a regular basis. And what became interesting about it is during that process, I started to see a common thread behind my fears. The vast, vast majority of my fears were the fear of judgment. And many people have the fear of judgment. It actually is the number one fear. They say people are more scared of speaking on stage than they are of dying. Well, the reality is that they're more scared of the judgment that will come when they speak on stage, or the judgment that may come when they speak on stage. It's not the speaking on stage. So it's just sharing their voice with the world. So me, I did have a fear of sharing my voice with the world. When I was growing up, I grew up in an abusive, volatile, alcoholic household. And there were a lot of negative things that were said in the house. My first husband was just like my dad, very abusive. And so I carried all this negative energy around everywhere I went, but really the negative beliefs about myself were what were important there. So as I started facing a fear every single day that year, I started to realize that I was allowing the fear of judgment to stop me from living my life, to stop me from sharing my voice with the world. And I started sharing it that year, and things have literally unfolded. Kim, I think I met you in 2016. And so that was after I had already faced a fear. Imagine meeting me before that. Like, I was terrified to talk to people. So it's been just facing those fears like that. Now I do things because I'm scared. And I put that in the book, do it because you're scared. Because if you say, oh, I'm scared, I'm going to do it because I'm scared. It really, it removes that fear factor, so to speak. And it gives you that encouragement, that motivation to just go do it.
Wow. It's so interesting, Linda, when you talk about when you speak about judgment, because that judgment is often a two-way street. Growing up in a religious cult was all about judgment, and then as it grew and grew and got worse and worse, it didn't matter if 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 you were doing the right thing or not doing the right thing, you were still judged. And oftentimes we have that self judgment added into the mix, and it truly creates this doubt. It changes our mindset, and I know you're all about taking action, as I am. It actually impacts the action that you're taking every single day toward your goal, because I often say, you know that sort of thing gets you in what I call mental court. And when you're in mental court, you twist your mind into a pretzel. I used to say that all the time. I just feel like my mind is being twisted into a pretzel, and because I'm trying to reason things out and get over this fear. And I love what you said, because you faced a fear every single day, and you change by doing that, you changed your perspective about the fear. And so I thank you so much for sharing that. And I just know in that short snippet of what you were talking about, there's so much power and nuggets of information that our listeners can readily take a hold of and start moving through their fear. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, you're welcome, Kim. I want to say something as I was getting ready for this interview, because we're doing a lot of interviews right now, with the books and everything. And I was brushing my teeth and I was like, dress to impress. And I said, F that, man. You know what? I'm just going to be me to impress. Forget about dressing to impress. So I'm wearing a t-shirt today. I said, you know what? I'm going to be on Kim's show. We're going to be talking about courage. We're going to be talking about fearlessness. And so maybe a fear for me might have been previously is like, what am I going to wear? What am I going to wear? And you know what? I'm just going to wear a t-shirt today. And it says, I don't even remember what it says, be grateful, and it's like, that's the shirt I'm wearing today. So why am I going to change it just to show up here? Because I don't need to dress to impress. I need to just show up as me. And if it impresses, awesome. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm a t-shirt, jeans, flip-flop wearing woman. So that's what I'm showing up as today. So I just wanted to mention that because I don't have that fear of judgment anymore. And that really was instrumental to me doing a lot of the things I'm doing today. So thanks, Kim, so much.
That is a great, great analogy. And isn't it interesting that your shirt is about being grateful? Because I know for myself and also through these other incredible fearless entrepreneurs that I've interviewed, even though they've overcome adversity and felt so much fear, they have so much thankfulness and gratefulness, even sometimes in the midst of that. And I think that is a key piece to helping to move through that fear with courage. And I love your t-shirt. I'm so glad that you showed up, because what is it that they say? 80% of our success is about showing up. And Linda, you always show up. And I love your shirt. So thank you. And then our next guest is Mary Elizabeth Jackson. We're going to bring her on. She's going to share with us about her adversity and overcoming fear to be this powerful, fearless entrepreneur. So Mary, take it away.
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for having me on, and Linda, just thank you so much for this opportunity. I love teaming up with you, and you know what? I have on sort of like a t-shirt too today. I had the same thought you did. I was like, I did curl my hair though, because it was on a crazy bun. So I was like, oh, but we do need to. It's important for us to go, okay, I'm okay in my skin. I'm okay if I don't look like what my perception is or what somebody else's perception is supposed to be. And I'm really excited to have Sherry too and get to know Sherry. And, we're all on this journey together and sharing our stories. So it's really funny. I thought about this the other day, a story that I left out of this book, which is so profound in my life. And isn't it funny how we go through things in our life and we move past them. And so they're no longer that big of a deal. So you forget about them. But then if you tell somebody, they're like, oh my God, how did you get through that? And you're like, oh, well, I didn't, I just did, and that's the past and it's done and I'm here. But I am, I guess what you would call a recovering agoraphobic. In my early 20s, it was like in one of the books I wrote about how my health changed, and it changed the entire path of my life at that time in my early 20s. And so during that time, I had all this panic and anxiety that came on that was just, it was just out of control. And then I became an agoraphobic to the point that I was in my apartment. I was married at that point, and in my apartment, the fear of Angora sweaters. I love it. I was where I couldn't even leave my apartment to go get my mail. I mean, and I'm not joking. This is not exaggeration. It's not drama. I love drama. I love theater. Drama's for the stage. But it was that bad. I was so locked into, I had to drive on certain streets. I couldn't go to certain places. And it was like, I wasn't always that way. So to not be that way and then be that way and be so constricted and feel like something has so much control over you that you can't even live your life it's really kind of hard to describe. And I one day realized that, okay, so this is limiting me on every single thing in my life that I want to do. And it has more control over me than what it should. And you're not going to die from an emotion. You may have those chemical reactions in your body. You may even pass out, but you're not going to die from being afraid or scared or whatever it is. So I was like, well, like as Linda said earlier, screw that. I'm not doing this anymore, right? This will not have control over me anymore. So I took a step and became an advocate for other agoraphobics and people who had panic attacks. And I worked on a hotline. Can you imagine? That was a step I took to come out of it, was to help other people. And that empowered me. And so from there, it was a very slow change and it took years. And as my health got better and we got some endocrine things and thyroid things under control, then things started to balance themselves out. And then I took those steps because that inner drive to be creative and to be an entrepreneur and to do something more than what I was just doing and being in this world, that came in. And those were all stepping stones, because you try something and maybe it doesn't work. So you try something else and maybe that doesn't work. And then you try something else. So I never gave up. I started from a place of complete fear of doing anything at all, even leaving my dwelling of where I live to go get my mail, to where I am now. So that's a huge jump. I mean, and granted, it took a long time, but that will never be in control of my life again. And when my kids have anxiety, a lot of people have anxiety right now. The world is so the way it is. But what I always tell my children is, you're not going to die from this emotion and this feeling you have right now. Okay. So it has no control over you except the power that you give it. And, scripture that helped me get through was, God does not give me the power of fear, but the power of love, love and sound mind and strength. Because really, where does fear come from? Fear comes from a lack of a place. It doesn't come from love. It comes from the opposite place. So I would say, no matter what kind of fear you're facing, standing up and talking to people, calling someone to make a cold call, showing up on a call like this, being in an interview, networking, you know what? You just have to do it, because it is that next step to where you want to be. And if I can come from where I was, anybody can come from where they're at. Because now here we're getting ready to launch this book. I've got other books launched. I've got award-winning children's books. I've got another book coming out in October. I've got, working with a film company, ghostwriting, all the advocacy work. I mean, the shows, so you could not do that staying in a place of letting that absolutely control yourself and your life.
Mary, you made just an incredible several points, but what I want to just reiterate to our listeners is, isn't it so interesting that once you make a decision to do something different, how things start lining up in your favor? And when you mentioned how you were feeling, you decided you didn't want to feel like that anymore. And then you became the hotline person for people that had the same feeling for you as you did. And so I find it so interesting. Not only does making a decision line things up in our favor, but I also find it so incredible, impactful, that sometimes where we are in our own program, like whatever that thing is that we're looking to break free from fear, we go against that fear and move through that with courage. And another key word is the action, so making a decision, taking a different action for a different result. So many powerful nuggets that you shared with us. And I thank you so much and honor you for sharing your voice and your experience of what you've been through in a very physical fear that literally kept you from moving, and how I see you shining your light and helping other people is just so incredible to see. So thank you so much for sharing, Mary.
I appreciate that, Kim. So Linda asked about agoraphobia, and it is really an extreme fear of openness, of being out of of being in any place, anywhere, at any time. It's very unrealistic is what it is. And, you could go to the grocery store and maybe have a panic attack. And so you can't ever go back to that grocery store. You can't ever park in that same parking spot. You can't ever maybe eat the same food. It's so irrational. And it also comes from not having that belief in ourselves about who we are and our own strength, because we allow something to be stronger than who we are and tell us what to do. It's like, oh, I got to have this drink in order to calm myself down. No, you don't. That is something you've chosen to buy into. You could do something else. And you could go help somebody else who is having the same problem. I just wrote about that in a book for someone. That's what their lesson is for people. If you're depressed, go help someone who's depressed.
Yes.
If you have, if you are lacking money, I mean, if you're having trouble with money, give a little bit to somebody else who has less than you do, and then it just kind of, it unfolds that way. So.
Yes, so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing. And then we want to bring on Sherry. And Sherry is going to share with us about her overcoming adversity and fear. And so, Sherry, welcome to the show. We're so honored to have you here.
Thank you so much, Kim. It's my honor to be here. And it's so interesting doing these interviews because everybody's story is so different, but it's part of the joy when you actually pick up the book to read it. You just get to go through everyone's journey with them. And my chapter is actually called I Got a Real Job. And so it sort of leans into the fact that I was working a real job, meaning working, I use real in air quotes, in a daycare, or a preschool. And so I actually ventured from that job and developed a side hustle in the direct selling space. And so that's actually, if you don't know anything about it, it takes a bit of courage to leap into that. But, I graduated in the 80s. I know all about the pyramid scheme thing and all of that. So, it's interesting because when I leaned into that, I had actually not a big concept of anything related to a pyramid scheme, what all of that was, because when that was all happening, I was oblivious because I was a kid paying zero attention to anything going on that wasn't directly related to me. And so when I started to get into that industry, I started to run into the roadblocks of, is this a pyramid scheme? So I had to try to figure out what one was to actually intelligently answer the question. But after getting it multiple times, and a lot of times it was like I would be working with, like the female, and it was the male voice that would come in and do that. So then I was like having conversations with people's spouses. And so I knew I had to come from a place of strength, but also knowledge, right? So, but there was definitely fear in that. Like, what if I don't say the right thing? Or what if I don't know enough? Or what if I can't argue my point? And there was a lot of growth that happened in there that I actually don't share even in the chapter, but I had to come to terms with what I wanted and what I wanted to do. And the way that I wanted to do life had to be more important than anything else. And so I had to prioritize myself and what was important for me. And that's kind of where that fearlessness came from. I grew up in a home with domestic violence. It was not directed at me, but I witnessed it to my parent. And a part of me, I think that's where that layer of foundational strength for me came from. It's like, listen, if I can take that, I can take anything you're dishing to me, because it pales, right, in comparison. And I learned that as long as I was in control of me, I would be okay. And that's where I think I really learned that I just had to be me, and whatever way me was okay. And I could always improve me, and I could become stronger, and I could learn and become more knowledgeable. But fundamentally, I'm okay as me, and me is fearless, because that's the choice I make, which we just talked about, right? It's what I choose. And I'm famous for the hashtag choices create change. Change your choices and your choices change.
That's so powerful, Sherry. Thank you so much for sharing. And again, you shared so many incredible nuggets of information about, sometimes we're conditioned to fear. That was a generational pattern in my story. We were programmed for that, and then that fear takes over, and then we start the whole, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not educated enough. And so I often say, some people take all those things and they really get themselves in a ball, and that ball becomes like a snowball that just keeps building and building and building as you roll it. And then there's some people, and I found myself a little bit, or probably more so in this area, because my fear was so in one area of my life. I was able to compartmentalize it to where that fear stayed there. But I believed in my career, in my business, that I was not afraid of work. I could be the best employee. I could be the best leader because I was leading myself. And it took me a lot of years. And after leaving that situation, to where, like, my fear was not packaged up like a bunch of shopping carts that were stuck together at the grocery store, because for whatever reason, I had compartmentalized them. And I think a lot of that was because of my belief in self-leadership. I could lead myself in my career, at my job, and be the best employee that I could be. And interestingly enough, that became my outlet to thrive in my life and take control, so that fear didn't go spill over into other areas. So I thank you so much for sharing that. And again, reiterating, sometimes that fear that we have is from a generation, and oftentimes it's a generation possibly of people that we have not ever even met, but it's passed down and it's passed down. And there is a big pattern of the traditional career work versus the entrepreneur work. And I think some of that information is going to come out in this powerful, fearless entrepreneurs book of their story and the tips that they've used to become a fearless entrepreneur. And so when we think about being a fearless entrepreneur and even going through adversity, I'm just curious from each of you, like, was there a light bulb moment? Was there a little whisper moment? Or was it something more knocking you on the head that woke you up to the fact that, you know what, enough of this fear, I'm doing something different? And I'm just curious, what was that moment for you? So Linda, if you would come back on and lead us through your story and share with us.
Thanks, Kim. That's an interesting question, because as you're asking, and of course, I'm going through my memory bank, trying to figure out, was there like one defining moment to answer your question? And I can't really come up with one to specifically answer, so I'm going to answer in a little different way. And so for me, the journey called entrepreneurship, which I love it as a journey, because we're constantly growing and changing if we're open-minded enough to grow and change. And I definitely have an open mind. Sometimes it closes, but I recognize, okay, it's closed, I need to open it back up so I can learn more, because the learning comes in the open mind. It doesn't come in the closed mind. And during this journey, so I mentioned earlier that I had worked with a life coach. I faced a fear every single day, and that was in 2015. And in 2015, I remember not so much the moment of the entrepreneurship thing, but really the moment of believing in myself, which was much more pivotal for me. Was I finally, at 51 years old, started to believe in myself. And that's when things started to change. But I was sitting in a conference room, attending a marketing workshop for my business, right? I'm trying to learn how to run a business, attending this networking marketing workshop. And the lady asked a question. And for the first time in my entire life, I actually raised my hand. I was like, I wanted to answer, which was crazy because I never wanted to answer before because I had that fear of judgment. So it wouldn't let me answer. So, she called on me and I went ahead and I stood up and I said whatever it was I said. And then I sat down. Like, I remember this moment will forever last with me because this is that moment. I sat down and the two women sitting next to me said, "Oh my God, that was brilliant. Will you repeat it? I want to write it down." First, the fact that somebody said that something I said was brilliant was a huge, like, really? I didn't realize. I was just saying something. And so as I repeated it, I was staring up into it. There was a chandelier above me. And I was staring into that chandelier and I was saying to myself, but yelling as loud as I could. You know, you kind of yell to yourself in your head. So I was yelling as loud as I could. My God, I have value. From this moment forward, I will share my voice every opportunity I get. It was in that moment that I realized that sometimes especially us quiet people, I was quiet for years. As you can tell, I'm not that quiet anymore, but I was quiet for decades. It was all these things that were going around in my head. And I never wanted to say anything because what if they think I'm stupid? What if they think I'm ignorant? What if they call me names? What if they talk about me behind all these what ifs were stopping me from saying something. And it was in that moment realizing that something that I said was actually brilliant. And what would happen if I didn't say it? What would happen? They wouldn't have gained that piece of that little nugget that they needed in that moment. So it's my mission to not only share my voice as often as possible, but writing these collaboration books. This is part of that for me, opening that door for other women to step up and share their voice with the world. So it's that for me, there's nothing like it. And I feel that that is my purpose, and my purpose drives me on a daily basis. I work hard. I work a lot of hours. But I love every single minute of it. And I wouldn't trade it for anything because I'm living my life's purpose. So I know that didn't really exactly answer the question, but I needed to go there because really for me, it was about believing in myself. That's why I'm here today doing this, like leading a book like this, right? Because I believed in myself enough to say, hey, I have this idea. Is anybody interested in coming along with me? And so really that's what it's all about for me. Thanks for asking, Kim. You got me going through my memory banks there.
I love when that happens. And it is truly the joy. The joy of the journey is the learning and the progress that we make. And, it doesn't matter what fear that we've been through. When we do get to the place that we can raise our voice, and in doing that, I think you would agree, all of you would probably agree that as you've been able to express yourself and use your voice, that fear takes a back seat because you're able to release things that may have been holding you back. So I love your story, Linda. And I'm so glad that you raise your voice on a daily basis. And I'm just so honored to be connected with you as well. And so, Mary Elizabeth, would you share with us what was that moment for you, or was it a lot of little moments that set you on the trajectory to overcome and move through your fear with courage?
Yes, it was definitely, there were light bulb moments here and there, but it was definitely as little whispers like, okay, so you need to be doing more than this. And my chapter is about following your creative heart. So that's what was screaming at me. It was screaming at me to do something. And it was screaming at me to, and I really struggled with, being a mom and then being an entrepreneur, which is still a balancing act every single day. Like I need to be at a meeting tomorrow, but it's my husband's 55th birthday. So I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. I know we're trying to plan a mental health thing, but I can't be there. So I have, we're gonna have to find another date, but it's a constant balance thing. But for me, there was that whisper and that inner drive, that creative part of me that just needed to be creative and do something. And I didn't even know what it was. So like I talk about in my chapter, how it was trying different things along the way until I found my thing. And my thing is not just one thing, it's several things that are kind of all working together in cooperation with each other. But I will say that, being in this book with Linda and all these other amazing people, both books, that was a leap of faith, because that was overcoming a fear, because okay, these are things I've never talked about. I've never even written about them. Do I feel safe enough to even put it out in the world right now? And so I contemplated it when Linda asked me. I was like, okay, first you think about, what are you going to talk about? What are you going to offer? What do you have to offer other people? And then it's like, does anyone really want to hear my story? Do I have anything of value? And then it's like, oh, can I really talk about that? Like, do I feel brave enough? So this was an overcoming, of fear, just doing this project with Linda. So I'm grateful for that, because, we all have stories, and we all have stories that other people need to hear, and we have experiences in our life. And one of the purposes for them is to help others to overcome themselves and to share. It's like that ripple effect, So I would say for me, it's been a lot of little whispers along the way that have said, never give up. Never give up. Okay, that didn't work, so you're going to try this now. Okay, so then something comes in a dream, or something is downloaded, or there's an inspiration somewhere that says, this is what you need to do. Take, for instance, one of the shows that I have with our friend Brigetti Lambanda. I was like, God said, you need to do this show. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. Do it anyways. I don't care. So I did. And we're here 3.5 years later, and we've met amazing people, and we're, we're booked out through December. So, there's no stopping. So I would say it was those whispers that kept me going to continue to overcome fear, to be brave enough to step out as an entrepreneur.
I love that. And I love the little whispers, because oftentimes we have those little whispers. I know that whisper was something that I experienced in my fear. And then exactly what you said, like, are people going to understand that? Are they going to, what are they going to think if I share my story? But on the other side of that, what an impact that you have made by sharing your story and helping people overcome. I'm so excited that you're also an incredible author in this Fearless Entrepreneur book. And I can't wait to get my hands on it to read your chapter.
Oh, I know. I can't wait to read everybody's chapter. I've read some of them, like when I was going through looking at the typos, and I was like, oh my gosh. And you're like, oh, I can't wait to meet that person. You're like, whoa, I can't believe they overcame that. That's so cool,
Yes.
There weren't very many typos, by the way. I'm just going to say.
Of course not. And then, Terry, if you would join us and share with us, was it whispers along the way? Was it something that kind of knocked you, off your feet, or what was your experience?
As I mentioned before, thank you, Kim. As I mentioned before about the point where I kept seeming to get like, is this a pyramid? The flip side of that is the title of my chapter is like, well, that's not a real job. And I remember very, very clearly a conversation that I had with a friend. I had joined this networking group, BNI. And that took a lot of courage. I'm just going to tell you that right now, because being in direct selling / network marketing, I'm basically in network marketing now, but that stepping into that space with brick and mortar business owners and things like that, and you're a network marketer, there was definitely a very pronounced, I'm a level down. It wasn't by words, it was by an energetic feeling that I got. So I felt like I was always a little off balance in that group, because I always felt like I had to walk and justify what I did, that it was a real job. So anyway, one of the pivotal moments for me was a conversation I had with somebody in there. And I write about it in the chapter, but I actually challenged her. And until you asked the question this way, I didn't actually realize how pivotal it was, but I had changed companies, right? And she said, geez, what are you doing now? And I was like, my emotional meter was like flames. Like I was upset. because I was changing company, and that was a stressful thing for me to change company, right? And it was a different product line. But I stopped for a second and I said, because I valued this person, and that's what I realized was the difference. I valued her. And I said, let me ask you something. If I was an insurance agent in this group, and I say I was with State Farm and I decided to go to Country Financial, would you have just asked me that question? She said, no, why? And I said, well, I want to ask you, why wouldn't you have asked me that? She said, well, because it's insurance. I said, and I got to tell you something right now. I said, because I changed company didn't mean I changed jobs. I said, I'm in sales. That's what I do. I said, because I changed the product doesn't mean I changed companies or didn't change my profession. I stood my ground, right? And was like, that was the moment that I realized this is a real job. I have a real job. I do the same thing no matter what company I'm with. I show up as a sales professional, no matter what I choose to share with people. And that was a very pivotal moment for me. So the irony of this is not lost. This friend, and this conversation happened 8 or 9 years ago, literally last week, I said, hey, I wrote about you in an upcoming book. And she said, you did? Because she had reached out to me about something else. And I said, yeah. I said, you're in a story in my story. And she said, really? She said, what did you say? So I reminded her of that conversation. And she said, oh my gosh, I remember that conversation. And I said, yeah, I was hot. I was mad. And I said, and I responded, but I kept my cool. She goes, oh my gosh, I don't really remember you being mad. And I said, no, I was mad inside, but I needed you to understand me. And I said, that was the time where the fearlessness came out and said, wait a minute, what I want is okay. And what I do is okay. And it's a real job. Like it was that thing. And she said, you're right. And you know what she said in that moment in the conversation? Oh my gosh, thank you so much for calling me out and telling me and communicating that with me, because I really do remember that conversation. And I said, I honored you with that because I needed you to understand me. And I said, I honored our friendship. And she goes, oh my gosh. And twice since then, she has sent me a message to say thank you. Because she said, I didn't realize I was doing that. I said, I know. But that's okay. I said, I needed you to know it is a real job. I am a real person and I work every day. And it's what I love. And I'm doing what I love. And that's amazing. And she said, oh, you're right. And you are awesome at it. So it was just nice to be able to give her that information. But it was a teaching moment. And I think sometimes we miss those amazing moments when we can share who we are, but we can change somebody else's perception as well.
Wow. Thank you, Sherry. And it's so true. So many things that you pinpointed on sharing that story all tie back into fear. And, one of the biggest fears is other people's opinions. Are they going to like me? Are they going to cut me off? And that sort of thing. So kudos to you for sharing your voice and also helping us to remember that a conversation like that from, a co-networker or whatever, oftentimes those people, because they've been conditioned, they don't understand what you're doing. And yet their conversation or their message back to you could have made you hesitate, could have made you question what you were doing. And I think it's so powerful how you handled that situation, because I've seen people in a similar situation with that get fearful, give up on their passion, get out of an industry that they were so believing in that they allowed it to cause them to have self-doubt. And so thank you so much for sharing your journey and that moment that, it's one of those moments where you drove a stake and, you stood up for your belief in that industry. And I think that just really shows the person of character that you are and the courage that you have to overcome maybe someone else's fear and just their patterned response to that industry. So thank you so much for sharing. Now, I know
Thanks
we've
for the
talked.
opportunity. I
Yes, yes.
appreciate it. After 24 years, there's many times I wish I had stood up like that. And I think that was part of the reason why I wanted it to be in the story in this book, because this is about moving from, that fear-filled point to this, completely courageous, fearless point. And we all have those moments, but thank you.
Yes. And that same trajectory that you've experienced, maybe taking the road less traveled, so to speak, if you're finding joy in that and you're the salesperson because people buy from who you are, not so much from the product to begin with. And so your belief in that is a trajectory change for your business and for your sales. And so it's that thing that makes your heart sing and that you stood firm on that. So I love that story. I can't wait to read your chapter. So we're going to throw it back to Linda. So we've talked a lot about our stories, what it is that we've kind of overcome. What was that moment that changed us to move through our fear with courage and be who we are and serve this world as fearless entrepreneurs? And so I'm going to throw it back to Linda so that she can elaborate a little bit more about this incredible collaboration book of so many authors that have come together to share their voice, to become fearless entrepreneurs to impact other people. So Linda, will you share with us, you talked a little bit about how this project came about, but can you share with our listeners what are the chapter titles for both Mary Elizabeth and Sherry, and then spill the beans here, like we've been talking about this for so many minutes. Tell us when this book is coming out. How can our listeners get a hold of this book?
Awesome. Thank you so much. And, I really love what both Mary and Sherry have shared. And I thought we should have had Larry here too, because we'd have Mary, Sherry, and Larry. So we don't have a Larry in the book. So maybe I need a Larry in the book. I don't know. But, it's been interesting because putting together the chapters and reading, because I've read every single person's chapter probably 3 or 4 times, just looking for different things, because we're doing marketing materials based on their chapter. So there's many reasons for me to continue going through and reading them. And I wanted to just point out, like, I love Sherry's perspective because, I know about direct sales. I'm not in direct sales myself, but just like you said, Sherry, there's a lot of like this perception, right, of the people in direct sales. And it's not the direct sales itself, it's the people who are doing it. So they don't know they haven't mastered that craft of sales, like you said. And so Sherry's been on that journey of doing that. And and Mary, talking about just, her journey. And it's incredible to like, Mary, I would never have guessed that you had that fear, agoraphobia, which I had to look it up because I was like, I have no idea what that is. So I hope she tells us. But I thought it's the fear of, what is those sweaters, Angora sweaters. That's what I thought it was. I had no idea. There might be people out there that have agoraphobia, which is the fear of Angora sweaters. I don't know. I just made that up. But it's interesting because, Mary, the way you are, the way you show up in the world, I would never have guessed that. And that's the thing about fear. It's in here. It's in here. And I don't care what your fear is, no matter how ridiculous it may seem to somebody else, it is real as real can be to you. And that's what's important here is for us to, like, people say, oh, that's a dumb fear. Like, I don't know how many times I've heard that, but that's a dumb fear. Why are you scared of that? Or just put on your big girl panties and just go do it. It's not that simple. It's not, I shouldn't say it's not that simple. It's not always that simple. Sometimes it is. Depends on where you are in your mindset at the time that that fear is coming up. I can have the same fear over and over and over again, but have had a different day that day where now that fear just like frightens me. Whereas other days I'm like, oh, I'll just go do it. You know what I mean? So it's really that perception of like what the fear is, and our fears are real. The putting together of this book, The Fearless Entrepreneurs, I was laying in bed one day, it was probably about 2 a.m. that I was awakened with this title. And, God, I believe, sends me these titles of things to do, and I get to decide, am I going to do something with it or not? And so this title came to me, The Fearless Entrepreneurs, and it came because, and I know that it's because the journey that I have been on, breaking through fears on a regular basis, I started looking at other entrepreneurs who also have like agoraphobia, right? Who have this challenge of people understanding why we're doing what we're doing. We're questioned all the time in entrepreneurship. Why do we keep going? I believe that it's that lack of fear, or that knowing how to just go ahead and do it anyway is what keeps us going. Because there's a lot of people out there who want to start a business, but say, I can't afford it. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to get started. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know what to do. All these I don't knows and all these reasons that they cannot start a business. Every single person who is an entrepreneur has faced those same exact ideas and thoughts, but they said, you know what? I don't know how, but I'm going to see if I can figure it out. I don't know what to do next, but I'm going to see if I can find somebody who can guide me down the journey. There's the difference there. That's where the line is drawn. They have stepped through that fear and they've gone and done it. And I don't care what it is, what your business is. If you are an entrepreneur, I truly believe that you are fearless. So thank you so much for stepping up. If you think about it, if it weren't for entrepreneurs, we wouldn't be on this call right now, because none of this stuff around me would ever have been invented, because nobody would have taken action. So it really is those fearless entrepreneurs who step into it and say, here I am. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out. And then they do, because they keep going for it. So we have the chapters. Sherry mentioned her chapter, I Got a Real Job. And, congratulations, Sherry, on that. It's so fantastic, right? And then Mary's, hers is Follow Your Creative Heart. And let's not forget Kim's chapter, Kim, The 7 Promises of Courage for Entrepreneurs. And just every chapter is written differently. They're written from the style of the writer, and that's one thing I love about it, is because I go into one chapter and I can dive into their life. So it's not like we took your chapters and we morphed it into having one voice. It's everybody's voice is totally 100% individual, telling their stories. And it's just, I'm just so honored and blessed to know everybody in the book. Like this is just 4 of the women in the book, but there's many of us, and there's 28 in this book in particular. And then, you asked him, when is this book launching? Last time you asked me that question, I was like, I'm not really sure yet, because I didn't have all the information that I needed in order to say, let's go. Because, to put out a book, it's not just simple as I'm going to write it and put it out there. There are some steps and processes that need to happen. Monday, August 16th, we are launching the book. Finally, officially, The Fearless Entrepreneurs, Fear Less, Be More. Oh, I didn't even mention that. My chapter is called Fearful, F-U-L-L, to Fear Less. So for me, it's really about just changing those fears into fearing less. It doesn't mean you are fearless. It just means you're fearing less. And so it's awesome. I'm so excited to push it out there. August 16th, we're doing the official launch. Of course, our goal is to become a best-selling book. When we become a best-selling book, every single author in the book becomes a best-selling author. Many of the authors in this book have never written a chapter in a book, have never been a published author before, because guess what? They broke through that fear of putting their words on paper. So that's one thing that really, really thrills me, is to be able to share their story with the world. So be looking out for it, thefearlessentrepreneurs.com. Go get your copy. You can actually get it now, but our official launch is on Monday. So please wait till that day so we can use that to become a best-selling book. I could talk forever, but I won't.
Oh my gosh, how exciting. I've done several collaborations with you and others. And I often say, if I can get a hold of one book from one author and get one nugget of information that helps move me in my personal life or my business life, then that book is a success. but how powerful that we have, how many is it? There's 20 plus authors in this one book.
28 in this one book, 28. Yep.
So think about it. There's 28 authors. What if you got one nugget of information from each chapter? How would that impact you?
Yeah, you'll get more than one per chapter, big time. These are just amazing. It's not just about the stories, but the lessons that we learn from their stories, right? Because we can either learn lessons on our own, or we can learn them on the backs of others. So I don't know about you, but I'd much rather learn it on the back of somebody else that already did it, you know? And so that's what you're going to get from this book, definitely.
Exactly. So if you're looking to grow, or you're looking to grow your business, or you're looking to maybe shift from that corporate work to become an entrepreneur or start a side hustle, you know, this is an incredible book, 28 authors where you can gain nuggets of information. I'm so excited to have you all on the show today. I thank you so much for your insights, sharing your voice, and helping our listeners. And I know we're going to all see you all over the place on Monday, August the 16th, as this book launches. And I just thank you all again so much for being with us today. Again, to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the Unshakable Courage Show. I hope that you gathered some information from our inspiring special guest, and that you check out this incredible book to help you on your journey to become a fearless entrepreneur. I am your host, Kim Glass. You can see me and learn more about this show and other things that I am doing through my website. It's kimglass.com. I look so forward to you tuning in to our next show. And remember to face reality, release your fears, and live with power. We'll see you guys next time on the Unshakable Courage Show. Thank you so much for tuning in.